Joining us now to discuss this and the other big stories around this area, talkTV's Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott, is with us. Good afternoon to you, Isabel.
Hello there, and to answer your question, I don't think it matters one iota what Rishi Sunak promises now. He might as well be singing on a cloud for the
Yeah.
number of people that are listening or believing that he's going to have another chance to deliver any of what he's unveiling today.
What do you think? You've covered politics for a long time, Isabel. Um, what do you think happens? I'm genuinely fascinated by this. This is sort of the kind of Gladwellian tipping point, as we refer to it, where the point of no return on something. And clearly, Rishi Sunak. I mean, some argue he hit that point on the day he walked into Downing Street, but others would be slightly more generous and perhaps contend that, maybe there was a moment where he could have turned something around, but because of events, dear boy, and all the rest of it, he was unable to. Are you team generous on this one, or do you think it was over before it began for Rishi?
I think the die was cast a long time ago. This is an administration that's come on the back of a lot of other Tory administrations, none of which appear to have led the country into a better place than when Prime Minister David Cameron took over in 2010. And when Keir Starmer says that it's unforgivable for a party to be in power for 14 years and leave the country in worse shape, I think that resonates with a lot of voters. It's really very simple. Have you in office left the place better, stronger, and everybody feeling happier with more of a spring in their step and more money in their pocket? Or have you done the exact opposite? And all the evidence on objective measures,
Yeah.
whether it's immigration or tax or whatever, is that they've done the opposite. So how can they brazenly ask the electorate for another chance?
Yeah, well, quite. I mean, it seems extraordinary that, I look at this as an outsider, as we all are, to the inner sanctum of Downing Street and think, if I was in that position, I might just go, do you know what? I'm done here. I'm off to Barbados. You can sort of sense that. But of course, he's got to keep up at least the veneer of battling, although I don't even think he's doing that particularly well. We're hearing that the likes of Braverman and Jenrick are keeping their eye on what has been said in this manifesto. Is there going to be enough in there to get support? This is how bad it is. We're even debating whether his own MPs are going to support the Conservative manifesto. Let's have a listen then. This is Rishi Sunak, one aspect of that manifesto on tax cuts. Here he is.
The first rule of Labour tax rises is that you don't talk about tax rises. But we know that the policies Labour have already announced will require them to increase taxes on working households by £2,094. My friends, families cannot afford that, and it is our job to make sure that that doesn't happen. We are cutting taxes for workers, for parents and pensioners. We will pay for permanent reductions in taxation by controlling the unsustainable rise in working age welfare that has taken off since the pandemic. National insurance tax cuts are already worth £900 to the average worker. And we will keep cutting taxes in the coming years, meaning that by 2027, we will have halved national insurance to 6%. That is a tax cut, my friends, worth £1,300 to the average worker.
Now, here's the thing, Isabel.
Can I just say,
yeah, go
Ian,
on.
I think he's been listening to our very own Jeremy Kyle, because there's one person that always says, my friends, and it's our Jeremy.
That's a
and
good point.
Sunak's picked that up. I've not heard him using that.
I think that's, what Kyle says people follow. We know this. So I think it's quite possible that the Prime Minister's inner team have been Kyling it, as I think all the kids are saying, and stealing phrases. I mean, what is extraordinary about that particular clip, as if this even needs saying, that we are sitting on the greatest tax burden since, I don't know, Queen Victoria was on the throne or something, under this government. Here we have a man sort of almost talking about cutting tax as if it's something he does on a regular basis.
I mean, it's just breathtaking, isn't it, really? And all I could think, and I watched the whole thing and all the questions afterwards, was as he kept saying, we will do this and we will do that, I kept thinking, well, no, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. And you've had all this time to do it and you haven't done it. And so guess what? Voters are not going to give you another chance. Now, I did think that he sort of put an admirably brave face on it. He stuck to his script. He didn't look too miserable. He managed to kind of sound fairly jaunty, and those grey heads lined up on the front rows, his cabinet, most of them are grey-haired, middle-aged men. They nodded in all the right places. They clapped along. But look, they know the game is up. We all know the game is up. It's over.
It is, but he's still in there batting in some respects. Could they change the leader 3 weeks and 2 days away from an election, Isabel?
Well, that's a really good question. And actually, there were rumours over the last couple of days that that extraordinary thing might happen. The rumour was going round Westminster that Rishi Sunak might be on the verge of resignation in the wake of his catastrophic decision to leave the D-Day commemorations early. And that prompted the question as, how would that actually work? Because at the moment, there aren't actually technically any MPs. So were a prime minister to walk away in these circumstances, they would have to be replaced either by another minister, because ministers still exist, or by someone in the House of Lords. And Nadine Dorries was speculating that this was a secret reason that David Cameron had been brought back as Foreign Secretary. There's a great plot behind the scenes to install him. That moment has passed. I never really believed it. So it's not going to happen. He's got to see it out, and then he'll be off to the California sunshine for the rest of the summer. That's my not particularly unusual prediction.
There is one suggestion, which I'm sure you're familiar with, that there could be a press conference next week where people like Braverman and Jenrick set out a series of alternative pledges. I mean, that's madness, right? How would that work?
Thanks for that, guys. You know, those two, Braverman and Jenrick, they've both been in positions of high office. Suella Braverman was the actual Home Secretary. So I don't think there's any appetite from voters for hearing their noises off about what they would do were they in some kind of alternative universe where they were somehow projected back into power and not Rishi Sunak. What a load of absolute nonsense. How undisciplined, and frankly, what an insult to voters. They should just get back in their box.
And what would it, I mean, how would that even work? Can you imagine almost like a separate manifesto, a sub-manifesto being launched? I mean, it's just bananas, this stuff. I mean, how would that, what are we meant to think as voters? Well, okay, is it that one I listen? Is it that one? Is this people electioneering for a new cabinet?
Voters will just think, I am not listening to any of the lot. And it is so daft and so self-defeating, because it's not as if there is any great outpouring of excitement, of enthusiasm from those who want some kind of Conservative with a small c government. They're not thinking, oh, yay, let's go for Keir Starmer because he's a really inspirational figure. But Guy has a lot of support simply because of the state of the other main party.
Correct. Pat McFadden for Labour has just responded to the manifesto launch and says it looks more like the chaos of Liz Truss. And I wouldn't normally agree with Mr McFadden, but he might be onto something there.
Well, I wouldn't have said it's really about chaos. I just think it sounded empty. You know, it just isn't credible. It's not to be believed. And, you know, these Tories that are fighting for their seats have got to go round knocking on doors and facing voters saying, why should I believe what you have to say? You've not done any of it. And there is just no escape from that grim reality.